Hello there, welcome to episode 9 of the Data Vault Radio Show. In this special Easter episode, we're going to have not one but two interviews, talking to people who went to events around Data Vault over the last couple of weeks. We'll also have updates on the news and much, much more. All that coming up right now on the Data Vault Radio Show. Welcome to a very special Easter-themed-ish episode of the Data Vault Radio Show. I say Easter-themed because I'm actually eating chocolate in between takes. Just to shake things up a little bit though, because of the Easter weekend that's coming up, instead of having one interview, I've got two lined up, as well as some footage from a couple of events. The two interviews that I've got lined up are with Julien Redmond from Ignition, who was in Melbourne last week to do a live recording for the Data Vault Masterclass, which airs on this channel tomorrow. So if you haven't already, make sure that you're following what we're doing so you can get updates on this. The other interview is with Christof Wenzeritt from Scalefree, who held the DVIC Summit in London a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to learn a little bit from both of them about what the events that they've been at have been like, what they've learned, what the insights have been that will help people in the data management industry going forward, as well as some footage at the end of it so you can kind of see what they got up to. And of course, on top of that, there's also going to be a few other little bits and bobs, like the news, which is coming up now. At this year's NVIDIA GPU Technology Conference, hosted in San Jose, California, thousands of experts, software developers, and industry leaders gathered to discuss the state of AI. One of the topics discussed was how AI is accelerating product design and development. From cars to cosmetics, generative AI is accelerating the product design process. In the automotive industry, teams are inputting parameters and constraints to test a wide range of designs, optimizing for factors such as aerodynamics, safety, and aesthetics. This approach enables faster iteration and discovery, reducing the time and cost associated with developing new models. Quote, "We're not talking about just giving somebody an AI assistant to work a little bit faster. The tool is now starting to redesign the product," said Dan Dicio, Global Artificial Intelligence Leader for EY Consulting. If you want to see something a little bit different as well about how AI can be used in strange ways, check out the article in the links below looking at Oracle Red Bull Racing and how their use of artificial intelligence has been used to dominate Formula One. In other commentary at the conference, Jill Klein, head of Internet of Things and Emerging Technology at CDW, talked about how preparing your data and managing it well is the best way to ensure AI success, commenting that this is a key step that many organizations overlook in their rush to use AI, saying that without visibility into your data ecosystem, AI's impact is limited. One of the reasons it's crucial to establish a solid foundation in data management means that the better your inputs are, the better your outputs will be. Commenting further, she stressed the importance of modern data platforms and robust data governance practices, and that fostering a culture of data literacy and accountability across the organization is vital. Employees should be trained to understand the importance of data, data management, and their role in maintaining data integrity. NVIDIA also announced the Blackwell platform, which enables real-time generative AI on large language models at a lower cost and energy consumption. The platform features 6 transformative technologies and is expected to be adopted by major cloud providers and leading AI companies. The new product, called Blackwell, will be available from partners starting later this year, supported by a wide range of hardware and software partners. There's a link to this story down in the bio below. Something to watch as well as the GPU and LPU competition heats up with the likes of Grok with a Q, not a K, that we discussed a couple of weeks ago. And finally this week, Snowflake Cortex is to support NVIDIA models to accelerate AI productivity in the data cloud. Expanding on Snowflake and NVIDIA's previously announced NVIDIA NeMo integration, Snowflake customers will be able to utilize NVIDIA NeMo Retriever directly on their proprietary data in the data cloud, all while maintaining data security, privacy, and governance seamlessly through Snowflake's built-in capabilities. NeMo Retriever enhances the performance and scalability of chatbot applications and can accelerate time to value for the 400+ enterprises already building AI applications with Cortex, Snowflake's fully managed large language model and vector search service. The expanded collaboration will also include the availability of NVIDIA TensorRT software to deliver low latency and high throughput for deep learning inference applications to enhance LLM-based search capabilities. And that's it for the news this week. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and to have your say on the community, jump over to the Data Vault Innovators community page, which is linked in our bio below. Now for a word from this month's sponsor, Wescape. Wescape helps IT organizations leverage automation to design, develop, deploy, and operate data infrastructure faster. More than 1,200 customers worldwide rely on Wescape automation to eliminate hand coding and other repetitive, time-intensive tasks to deliver data warehouses, vaults, lakes, and marts in days or weeks rather than months or years. Wescape has global operations in the USA, UK, Singapore, and New Zealand, and can be found online at wescape.com. Right, now you might have heard us mention Snowflake before, which is actually a really interesting little tie-in to our first interview that we've got today. A couple of weeks ago at the Snowflake offices in London, our team at Scalefree met up and put on the DVIC Summit, which is a one-day group meeting basically to sit down and discuss, network, and learn a little bit more about Data Vault. So I've actually brought in this week Christof Wenzeritt from Scalefree, who was one of the organizers for the event, because I wanted to know a little bit more about how it went down, what people learned, and what the big takeaways were from the day.
Why Data Vault? We're here, Data Vault Innovators Community. All three of you, Data Vault is quite embedded into your careers, your career path. You deal with it all the time. Why Data Vault? What was the attraction to it? Why would you bias it over any other sort of modeling style? So who wants to start?
For me, I think the one word is agility.
The data from nature, and that's what personally appealed to me, because I always, as a student, I was also interested in agent systems, like when you simulate swarms, bird swarms, that kind of stuff. I love this topic, and also believe that nature has an advantage over us, a couple million years.
I like Lego blocks, and Data Vault is pretty much like Lego blocks.
Fantastic. So I guess first question for you, thank you very much for joining me for this one.
Pleasure.
London was a couple of weeks ago now for the summit there. Do you have the exact dates in front of you?
It was the 14th of March. So yeah, roughly 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
So not too far, not so far back
No.
that you can't remember how it was, which is the important thing here.
I remember it pretty well, actually. It was a great event. I mean, there was drinks in the evening before and after, but I still think I can remember the most part.
So for you then, what was the highlight of the event?
The highlight, I mean, for me, it was actually workshops, because the event, usually how events work, right? You go there, you have a lot of presentations. Some are interesting, some maybe are not a perfect fit for your situation. And to be honest, they can get quite boring after a while. I mean, it's great to learn new things in presentations, but after the fifth one, it's exhausting, right? But there, what we wanted to do was like, okay, let's still do, of course, 1-2 presentations so people can learn about new things and can ask questions. But let's focus on workshops so the people actually will work with Data Vault. And that worked out really well. There were huge differences, obviously. The people who joined, some did Data Vault for like 10 years. Others didn't at all. They just looked into it and thought it would be interesting. And we put them together in groups. There was like 5 groups, and they had to do modeling and then remodeling, etc., and have to present it. And that was great. There was many discussions. People were super into it and had a lot of fun. So I didn't expect it to work that well. So I was super happy that that was the highlight. And when I asked people after the event, always the main part. Like, the workshops were amazing. Of course, the presentations were interesting as well. But the workshop part was bringing in something really practical. It was cool.
Who actually ran the workshops?
I mean, mostly Scalefree. So our consultants, Tim and Lorenz, they prepared the workshops. They actually used an example from a use case that's used by the German user group. They had like a big thing. We worked with them together last year on a bigger thing on the TDWI, which is a conference in Germany. It was a one-day, let's say, one-day workshopy presentation thing where there was one use case and there were different automation vendors for Data Vault, and they had to work with that use case. And then people could see the differences, what works well, what doesn't work well. That's all online. So if you're interested in that, reach out. I can send you the link. But we used that one. And then Tim and Lawrence prepared some questions and some solutions, obviously, for the people to go through and then discuss it afterwards.
And you mentioned presentations, because I know there was a few on the cards there.
Yeah.
Who were the big hitters there? Who sort of came to play?
I mean, we want to have one real use case from a company, and that was really cool because Nitin came from London Stock Exchange. They work with Snowflake and Coalesce. He also sponsored the event with us together,
Mhm.
and that was a perfect fit. And Nitin talked about what the challenges were, and that it obviously is always a roller coaster in the beginning with new technologies, but they're super happy with it and what the advantages are. That was quite awesome. And then Dimitro was there also from Snowflake. He's a principal for data cloud strategy, and he knows data vault like in and out. It's great. And he did his presentation about the new things in Snowflake because there's a lot of new things going on that could support our projects a lot, right? Like hybrid tables, for example, is a huge, for me or for us, it's a big thing. And that was super interesting. So those were the two presentations. Besides that, obviously, I used the event to pitch Scalefree like 10 minutes at least. Just tell the people what we are, who we are, where we're coming from, what we're doing. Coalesce did the same thing. But it was pretty short. Then we had those two presentations, and the rest were workshops. So in the morning, there was a big one. In the afternoon, there was a big one. And at the very end, we had a panel session as well.
What was the panel session about?
Um, I mean, to be honest, I didn't know if there are going to be much questions. So I prepared like 4 or 5, right? So then I went into the panel session, I asked 2 questions. The first one was general about data vault. So on the panel, there was Michael Olschimke, Dimitro, Mark van der Heijden from Coalesce, and me basically. And I got helped out by Damon from Coalesce as well. Yeah, and so I asked the first question, like what was the first time they actually worked with Data Vault, what they liked about it, what made them change their mind to move to Data Vault. And the second one was about AI, because there's a lot of change coming in, and I was really interested what this thing will the change be, where the change will be, and not just about getting information out, but also actually getting stuff in, right? So modeling that kind of stuff. That was super interesting. But then I just stopped with my questions because I just want to get it going. But then there were a lot of questions, and then we opened it up, obviously, and there was many different questions across the whole board. It was super interesting. I actually had to stop the panel session because we went way over time. And at one point, I was like, "I'm sorry, that's a great question, but we have to stop here because the Snowflake office will close, and we don't want to kick you out. So let's maybe take the last 25 minutes to just have a good ending. We had like some snacks there, wine and beer and
Mhm.
stuff like that, so people could just talk a little bit in the end of the evening, and then they all went home.
So it
Mhm.
sounds overall the whole thing went really well.
Oh yeah, yeah, I really loved it. It's we didn't know what to expect. It was the first one we did in Europe,
Yeah.
right? Um, and it was for the UK, so we had, I think, pretty much everyone came from the London area, um, and yeah, a lot of new people, and so you never know what's gonna happen. But I was really positively surprised by how engaged the people were. We also had bingo playing, like we had one bingo game, and the first prize was actually a boot camp, so that was a really great prize. And the second one was a ticket for our Data Dreamlands, our conference in September. And the third one was like a huge merch package, right? And in the beginning, I told people, all right, so if you have a bingo, the most important rule, if you want to win, you have to scream bingo, right? It doesn't matter where we are, and they just
Yeah.
scream bingo, right? And they actually did. That was super funny. I think it was in the middle of a presentation, and I don't remember who it was. Um, Yeah, I don't remember, but it was a woman. I remember that so far, and then I talked to her. I should remember the name. Okay, that's embarrassing, but that's what it is. I met a lot of people on that day, and she screamed bingo, and everyone looked at her, and it was just people started laughing. It was really cool. Yeah.
Good on her.
Mm,
You mentioned that there was quite an interesting mix as well of new people to the field and people who've been doing it for a while. I'm kind of
mm,
curious, what do you think the new people bring to the table when it comes to working with Data Vault, working how that fits into things like
yeah,
AI platforms going forward?
yeah,
What's the future look like with them?
yeah. I think what's pretty great about new people coming to Data Vault. Um, they already live in a new world of new technologies. I mean, we have things like Snowflake, etc., right? And way more data than ever before, and different use cases. You have this, and the governance part become way more important now. So they actually have, I wouldn't say really different, but still, new requirements that they bring to the table, and they ask new questions about data vault. And that's super interesting. So it's not like if you found out about data about 10 years ago, the main advantages were maybe a bit different than they are right now, right? Um,
Mhm.
so it's super interesting get new people in to ask questions, like new questions, that obviously data vault can answer, but it's super interesting. And so I think the mix for those events, that what makes it great, right? Because you have people who actually have to think about like basic question they didn't think about for a long time. Then there may be discussions between people who are doing it for a long time. Um, and then it becomes to get a real good discussion with actually new info, and everyone can learn. Then that's the great part, right? It's not just that only the new people learn, but in data world there's always a lot of solutions, a lot of ways to have a valid model. For example, it doesn't need to be the same, right? So it gets super interesting even if the people have a lot of experience. So yeah, I think I talked too much about that question, but I really love it
It's
that
a great
new people
answer.
come in and yeah, really bring a lot of new stuff to the table.
So,
Mm.
two more questions for you then.
Yeah.
First of all, what for you was the biggest takeaway from the event?
The biggest takeaway. One thing was we should have overbooked because we had like a few left empty seats, but we had way more people signing up that we had to decline because we didn't want to
Mhm.
overbook it. But it's a free event, so some people won't show up. So that was one lesson. So next time everyone can get a seat who actually wants to come. Um, that was the first one, but the second one, that it worked really well and people are really happy with it, and we should do it way more, especially on the workshop side and just coming together, discussing. It's a good thing, and we should do it way more. So we will do it way more. So that's the biggest takeaway from Scalefree. It was the
Mhm.
first time. It worked really well. So we're gonna do definitely another event, for example, with another partner of the DVIC, for example, but also maybe rerun it in London. There's a lot of things we can do. Um, but yeah, that's definitely gonna happen.
Cool. And how was the catering?
Amazing. Uh, like really amazing. I didn't expect it either. I mean, we're in the Snowflake office and they have like a catering partner. So we got them obviously, and they were really great. But we had way too much food. That was the only sad part. And we had too much wine. So I stayed in London for the weekend. A few people did, and so we just grabbed some bottles and took it because they didn't take it back, so we just had to take it with us, which wasn't the worst thing, right? So in the end, it
There
was
are
no
far
problem.
worse
Mm.
outcomes that you could have had than no wine.
That's probably true. That's probably true.
Brilliant. It sounds
Yeah.
like an amazing event, and I can't wait till you get the next one up and running. I'm always open if you've got an
Mm.
invite. I'm happy to trek halfway across the world to make a guest appearance for 5 seconds. I'm sure it'll be well worth the money that we'd spend on it. Christof, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you, Paul. It was great talking to you. Maybe see you next time in another radio show in the future.
I want to thank Christof and the team at Scalefree for putting on this event. It was a great turnout, and it was great to see the feedback coming through over on the Data Vault Innovators community forums. Again, link in the bio. If you haven't joined already, go join. It's free. Come have fun with the rest of us over there. It was a really fascinating thing as well to put that in comparison to what we saw Julien Redmond go through last week. He went to a number of conferences around Australia put on by some of the biggest names in technology with a really strong focus on AI. And that was all before he sat down and recorded this month's session for the DVIC Masterclass, which is coming out tomorrow here on whatever platform it is that you're viewing or seeing this on. So let's have a catch up with Julien now and find out what his big takeaways were from the tech industry's down under offices and what they'd like people to know about the future of technology and data management. So I guess the first question for you then is, have you recovered from the last week? Because it's been kind of hectic.
Yeah, it was a bit of flying around. Went around the country, down to Sydney and then on to Melbourne. But I got home last night, all easy flights, and a decent sleep last night, so that's not too bad.
So not on a Boeing?
I didn't check. but I'm thinking, I guess not.
You survived, so something must have gone right.
That's right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what were the events that you were off and about at?
So I went to Sydney for a data and AI event, forefront event with IBM and Tech Data, and yeah, it was a great event actually. It's I think it's a paid event. All the attendees pay to attend, and so it's very very specific. Lots of senior stakeholders milling around the crowd, and yeah, it was a good conversation. So it was actually probably one of the better events I've been to in quite a few years.
And then what was on in Melbourne?
So then to Melbourne to the Accelerate event down there. So that was an AI event. And so they had AWS and IBM and ourselves all talking about AI, which is really interesting. And then after that, we recorded a masterclass at Data Vault Meetup. So it was, yeah, I've been on camera a lot.
That was a fascinating masterclass. I really enjoyed having a listen to it because there's an obvious dynamism between you guys. You all know what you're talking about. You all have a slightly different perspective to things. I thought that was a really fun one to actually sit down and do as a panel for once as well, like an actual.
It's nice to do something in person rather than this kind of post-COVID Zoom-based era.
Yeah, everything on screen. So for you then, because obviously AI was a fairly big part of all of these events, what are your big takeaways from what you saw?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting actually. I was commenting that a lot of the discussions actually now are consolidating down to a kind of really similar message around, like you've got to think of the ethics and you've got to think of the unintended consequences of what you put out, and you need to be prepared, and you see have guardrails, and you have to have you have to audit what your AI implementations are doing, especially if it's like chatbots and those sorts of things. So a lot of that, and then a lot of how do you prep for it, like data quality and and curating your data set to train your LLM or this RAG models, which is the retrieval augmented generation. What are you feeding that? And then the discussion that the Data Vault audience would probably appreciate is that a lot of the questions that these large language models might get asked include some some information that's interpreted from documents, maybe policies or procedures or whatever else, and some factual information that is like, what were the transactions, or what was the sensor readings on a particular sensor on a piece of equipment, or what's an account balance. And so that information needs to come from some sort of store of information. And so a Data Vault fits that purpose perfectly, because these large language models seem to inherently understand graph models, and Data Vault is a graph model. So that's quite nice for us, for the Data Vault community. We can deal with the governance, we can deal with the data quality, and we can be the way to serve up these factual pieces of information into an answer that's being provided by a large language model. So yeah, but similar sorts of answers coming from IBM and AWS and others, which was. It was interesting I kind of felt a little bit for the audience in that actually they probably heard a similar sort of message with a slight tweak, a couple of times, but obviously I guess that's everyone's on the same track now, which might indicate that it's the right track. So.
I was actually going to say, was there a difference between the two? And it sounds like very similar base, both of them.
Yeah, it's just consolidating. I mean, the data and AI event, I want to talk about that in Sydney.
Mhm.
It was, we were there talking about our Launchpad accelerator for modern data platforms. And so this is an approach that we've developed to incorporate some of the data vault methodology with a data products based concept for coming from the data mesh sort of space. And how to apply that to a lakehouse architecture like Watson X from IBM or even Databricks from Databricks. And so this Launchpad accelerator we've built is really about, well, how do you do a stream of really rapid delivery to the business of data products that are quite simple, that can be shared with other technical users, that can create a sharing economy of information through a business, but with some reliability. And how do you do that really quickly? But then how do you then join those up through your data vault when you need to? And so have that kind of two-stream process running to help people, react quickly to urgent needs or do things in a sandpit kind of way, without putting too many barriers in front of them, but then make sure you do it in a way where when someone finds something interesting, it's, okay, here's through the warehouse path, and it's actually now enterprise and auditable and reconcilable and can be relied upon and all that sort of stuff. And so, so that was our messaging, and that, we were there. Obviously, we've built this architecture out. It'll run on IBM's Watson X platform, so we're there with them. And we had just so many people. Our booth was inundated. We had a roundtable session in the afternoon, and I think they did say that there was a limit of 15 people per round table, and if the table was full, then go find another table. But we had people dragging chairs over to listen to this conversation. And so we had some of Australia's really big organisations talking about how they're trying to build out data products and what it means. And this week, I think I've got a broader concept of what a data product actually is. It's not one thing. It's based on its use, its value to the business. So it might be for sharing data to a technical user, and so that has one particular structure, or it could be to support self-service BI for a report for a non-technical user, and that has a very different structure. And so it's it needs to accommodate those sorts of things. And so this concept of data products is not new, but it's certainly gained a lot of traction and interest. And I think people are quite interested in, well, if we do this, how do we not just duplicate them all over the place, and how do we govern it? And how do we actually get the business to own these things? Because the concept of a data product is the business owns them, not the tech team. And how do you actually get the business to own data? It's been a lifelong challenge.
That's an age-old question. Yeah, that's a difficult one to answer.
Yeah.
But it sounds like everything was really informative then. Like it helped you achieve what you wanted to achieve and sort of focus what you were doing already.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got lots of organisations we now need to follow up and continue those conversations with, which is great. That's what you want out of these sorts of events. So yeah, I was quite pleased, even though it was quite tiring.
I bet. Did you at least get a chance to relax during any of the travel, or was it just like meeting, airplane panic?
I'm good at sleeping on planes.
Really?
I usually fall asleep before we even take off, while it's taxiing out, and tend to wake up just as it starts to come down, when your ears start to realise that they're dealing with pressure change.
I can't do it. I can't sleep on planes. I have a lot of trouble with it, and it doesn't help on long planes.
That's if I download something to watch on the plane, generally I don't get to it because I fall asleep. So I did like the first symptom of motion sickness is being tired. So maybe it's a mild benefit of that my body doesn't like it, so it puts me to sleep. Who knows?
I think it's just an excuse to get out of eating airline food.
Yeah, well, short domestic flights, there's no food anyway. So, but yeah,
that's true.
It was good. But it was kind of rush when you're going from city to city. But I don't do it too often anymore, so it's not too bad.
No, I know the feeling. So overall, very good experience. Happy with how everything turned out?
No, it was good events, and but glad to be home and ready to spend a week of chasing people up to continue those conversations next week. So.
Thank you for doing that, because I'm not going to, but I appreciate the effort that you're putting in for it.
Thank you, Paul.
Right, that's it for this week's Easter episode. I hope that your weekend is full of chocolate or something sweet, or, just not having to work too much just because it's Easter. Don't forget to go and join us on the Data Vault Innovators community. Come have a chat with us, join the conversation, and meet other people who work in data management from around the world. It's always great to get new insights into everything that's going on. And don't forget, if you haven't already, to like, share, and subscribe this episode. Tell everybody about it so they can come and join the conversations. You can also find us on places like LinkedIn. So if you haven't already, do a search for the Data Vault Innovators community over there. Until next week, though, please have a fantastic long weekend. Happy Easter to everybody, and I will catch you all next week.